Hello everyone and welcome back to another vlog. Oh, I forgot my drink. Hang on. Okay, I think it's time for a huge update on a lot of things that have been going on this year and kind of like a little bit more about why this second channel has kind of fell off up until like last week when I posted the Tamagotchi update. I mean, I don't know if I am gonna get this up like within a week after the last one, probably not actually. Either way, there's a recent video, but the one before that was probably sometime in like November. We've had kind of like a whirlwind of stuff going on this year, and some of it was good, but a lot of it not so good. And so I kind of had to prioritise the main channel, which is actually my job. And even that, I've been significantly slower than what I used to be, so yeah. Now I've got with me a little needle felting kit because I feel like I might find it easier to kind of like chat to you whilst I've got something that I'm actively doing with my hands. So let's make something, I guess. And I kind of want it to be cozy, so we're in my bed instead of being at the desk. This is the kit that I got. You can make some other stuff with it, I think. There's also instructions for like a little bird as well, because I have the bumblebee and the little flower maid. I'm hoping it might focus. There we go. And like, you know what? I could have done the wings a little bit higher and they're a bit wonky, but I'm a bit wonky, so I love it. All I have to do now is attach it to the keyring, but I don't want to do that today, so I think we're going to make the bird. This bird is to be put on like a brooch. I don't really know what I would pin it to. I also worry with needle felting stuff about getting it like ruined on something, and I don't know how big to make it either. I guess I'll just get some out and see what happens. What I didn't think through is obviously I'm kind of new to needle felting and therefore it takes a little bit of concentration. I don't know if also my movements are shaking the camera because you're balanced on a... Okay, I have no idea if that noise is picking up on camera. Hopefully it's not. I have no idea what's going on out there. I've also got some notes on my phone as well, which is going to help me. And if you've been watching the main channel, if you didn't know, this is actually my second channel. My main channel is just Evolution, and it's a gaming channel that mainly focuses on games like Stardew Valley. It's linked in the description if you didn't know about it. But if you've been over there, you'll already know some of these updates because some of them we kind of like talked about either there or I think I mentioned one of them on my Instagram, like not as long after it happened. But if you've been over here, you haven't got a clue what's been going on. Obviously the last vlog on this channel, which was before the Tamagotchi collection update, that was the Halloween trip. Now before I do any of these updates, I kind of just want to like put a little sort of warning and disclaimer at the beginning, just in case like you didn't want to watch this video. So I'm going to be talking about pet related things and just not very nice stuff, and I'm also going to be talking about like personal health related things, so you know, things like illness and all that, and if you don't want to watch that kind of stuff then feel free to click off the video. But I'm kind of using this more like a stress ball than actually doing anything with it. Good start. I'm also not like a medical professional or anything, so obviously none of this is medical advice, and anything I'm talking about is literally just our experience. Nothing really more than that, so I just wanted to make sure I start off by saying that first. I do also want to say that like I'm kind of providing this video as a kind of overall update because every now and again, especially from the main channel, people will come into like streams and such and be like, oh, how is this particular thing, and there are some things that I don't really want to talk about, so I just kind of haven't, or I'd avoid the question, which thankfully this particular thing hasn't been asked in quite some time, so I haven't needed to worry about that. But that's why I wanted to like kind of get this done, because some stuff's happened in the past month and it's still very fresh, and other than doing this update video, I really don't want to talk about it. Like the health stuff that I talk about in several streams here and there, like I don't mind talking about that, but it's some other stuff that I'm gonna get into today that yeah, I can't, and it sucks. So yeah, this is your one video. Please keep it kind, especially in the comments, and if you are a watcher of the main channel, please don't come into the streams and ask a load of questions about the situation, because I will quite simply not answer them. We're very much still trying to heal, so yeah, I hope any of that made sense. Anyway, the last thing you all saw is that we had 2 cats. Not long after the Halloween vlog, we did end up having to rehome them both, and that was because we essentially, after spending a bit more time away from the home, like including for that Halloween trip, we noticed that it was the cats that were actually aggravating Michael's asthma quite a lot. Like to the point where he would be struggling to sleep even though the cats weren't allowed in here for that reason. We'd then tried like HEPA filters, he was on antihistamines already, he's got medication for his asthma and such, so we knew it wasn't kind of like anything extra we can do. We were also vacuuming every single day and washing things very frequently. But anytime we would be away for a while, even like a couple of days, he would like feel significantly better, and then walking back into the apartment, it was like walking into a fog for him. Now obviously I'm kind of like giving you details based on what he's told me. He's not gonna come and be a part of these vlogs, so I can only do my best to tell you from memory what he was kind of like dealing with that kind of stuff. So we found them a good home. They were going to be spoiled, and yeah, everything was all good there. Cleaned everything up and kind of like got our home straight again. The asthma and stuff started to improve really quickly, obviously by the fact that we weren't just like piling on more and more of the allergens. So is it allergens? I mean, I might be referring to it wrong. Either way, it was like a trigger, something that made it worse. I don't know what the exact term should be. I should also mention as well, Michael wasn't allergic to cats or anything before, but basically after getting COVID in 2022, it caused some complications, and for him it was long COVID and asthma. That was new, not a thing that he'd had to really deal with before. So it's not like when we got the cats we knew that he was allergic. We did not. We didn't have any idea, and it was kind of like, you know, especially at first, okay, maybe it's just like a part of the COVID, but it was after we were able to spend some time out of the house and away from them that we kind of like realised, because obviously it wasn't as much of a struggle until after we kind of got them, but we just thought it was like issues from COVID kicking in essentially, and yeah, it's part of it, but we also knew we made the right call after we started clearing the place up, and on the asthma front, he's been feeling quite a lot better, and in quite like a decently short amount of time as well. Now after like cleaning the place up and feeling better and such, the place kind of started to feel like we were kind of missing something. We both love having pets, and so we spoke to our landlady to get permission to get a dog. Now Michael's not allergic to dogs, and on top of that we wanted to get a breed like a Shih Tzu, which they don't really shed close to as much as a lot of other breeds of dogs, and I love the grooming side of things anyway, so I didn't mind the upkeep for the coat. I grew up with a Lhasa Apso, which is kind of like visually a slightly bigger Shih Tzu with a little bit of a longer snout, but coat-wise pretty similar, so I knew what I was in for. And we also picked a breed like that because we wanted to kind of like be aware of my chronic fatigue and such, and the kind of energy needs of the dog. So right at the very end of last year, we came home with a Shih Tzu puppy. Now if you watch the main channel, you'll know about our dog. He's all good, he's happy and all that kind of stuff, but he is also no longer at our home as of literally a few weeks ago, which is the thing that we are trying to heal from amongst some ow I said I wasn't going to kneel for. Okay, maybe this is why I shouldn't do it. Chronic fatigue wise, other than the sort of crash that I had from the Halloween trip, I'm basically just going to use this as a fidget toy, screw it. Other than doing things like big trips with lots of walking, I'd been relatively stable. Other than like a few odd days here and there, it wasn't like as huge of an issue as it once was for me, and so we thought I would be fine. I've done loads of research as well on so many ways that you can exercise a dog besides also walks, and like places that we can take him that he can do things like run around and sniff around without having to physically basically walk for miles. So we'd kind of like thought about a lot of things, and yeah, he was a little joy. We absolutely adored him. I'm not going to include anything like pictures or clips or even like his name, because all of that kind of hurts at the moment, and I don't even think I could cope with editing all of that in. And I guess like this is probably the specific situation where like this is the thing I really just don't want to talk about it, and so here is the update video because I felt weird not saying anything. And it's also why I've not been around the vlog channel, really, because obviously having a puppy, it is very intense, it takes a lot of time and energy, and there wasn't really room for running a second channel, essentially. I also know that like in talking about this, it is opening us up to like a lot of criticism, and just like know that we wouldn't have gone ahead and done any of this if we knew that it would end up this way, because 2024, at least so far, just hasn't quite panned out the way that we thought it would. And hopefully, thanks to a lifetime of knowing how to mask to some extent, it hopefully hasn't been all that apparent in videos and streams anyway, that we've been struggling. But anyway, a puppy, he wasn't like a particularly difficult puppy, really. He was really, really loving, very, very smart. He was such a little joy. And also Michael did do a lot of the responsibility side of any of it. You know, just to try and like remove some energy need from me, I guess, and also because a lot of my time was spent working on the main channel. There was, however, still like an element of like a good amount of disturbed sleep and still some, you know, a fair amount extra energy required, and what we didn't anticipate is how much this would affect me. On top of that, I was kind of like also struggling with a thing that I just quite simply can't switch off, and that was like I don't know how to describe it, but like, even though we made the room safe and such, so that I didn't have to like worry about any of it, it was hard to like switch off a need in the back of my mind to kind of like know what was going on at all times. I guess like being worried and also making sure I want to be on top of like specific like training things, anything like that. And so I was kind of like in a 100% of the time constant state of stress. Like, my body had pretty much almost no ability to rest. I became a very light sleeper. I would wake up from the slightest move or sound, which obviously when you've got chronic fatigue, it's not very helpful. But it also meant like any time and energy that I did have when I wasn't working, or even like having to set aside time that I would usually be working, some of that time and energy, instead of spending it on rest or like ability for me to have like mental free time, it was a bit of both of wanting and or needing to spend time doing something for our dog, which I did still enjoy all the things that we went and did with him, and even like at home and like playing and all that kind of things, because obviously you do need to like build and work on a bond with your dog, especially a puppy, and it is obviously like having a furry toddler. He honestly really wasn't bad behaved at all, but over time I was kind of like noticing a decline a lot more with my chronic fatigue, and ended up kind of needing a lot more forced breaks than I usually would do on a day-to-day basis. And that meant I kind of like ended up putting a lot more pressure on myself with trying to keep up with work, and even when I did work, it started to get to a point where I was literally working at like almost 50% speed as to what I used to, so it meant over time I was getting less and less time because I had to like keep up with the workload. Because obviously like working for myself, there's no sick pay or anything like that, and with my chronic fatigue I can't get anything like income protection insurance or anything, so yeah, just had to keep working. And obviously like there were some times that we did have like specific time for trips away to try and like help me recover. Sometimes it would help like a little bit, other times still not so much, because like obviously we're away to relax, but we still have to like have certain responsibilities like walking our dog and making sure everything's taken care of there. It also then meant like over time where both of our time and energy, because like obviously I've got chronic fatigue, Michael's still got long COVID, so there are struggles there, and he's also had a good few sort of like back injuries as well this year, which that didn't help either. But because of all that, it meant like even things like around the apartment were starting to like fall behind. And so like a few months in, we ended up saying, okay, well, there's a really good dog daycare place locally. We'll just try and like get in there for a day or even half a day, something like once a month. It also gave us the option to go out and do something like kind of just the two of us in places that you can't bring a dog as well, because like we were finding that we were struggling to also fully properly spend any real time together. But also with the dog daycare thing, we had to plan the days in advance, which is great and all, because then we can make a plan of what we want to do that day. But what we can't guarantee is how myself, or well, both of us, are going to wake up feeling on that day. And especially when it came to things like specific errands, like we got a new couch for the living room. It's more like a daybed situation, so we've got the option to just like lay down nearby in the daytime, but we didn't have a choice. We had to deal with that on that day, regardless of how either of us were feeling, for example. And it takes a lot of spoons to essentially destroy a couch and then build a new one. Literally just like don't have a choice. So then because of that, I would then go and kind of crash a little bit heavier and need a little bit more recovery, which again, because of my inability to switch off, was a lot harder to do. So what was kind of happening, we were noticing over time, is each time I went and did something, whether it was like an errand that we needed to run or do, or even like the odd day out that we wanted to do together, or even like I had one trip to London with a friend for a couple of days. Every time I was crashing, I wasn't fully recovering, so instead of a line kind of like going like this. It was like kind of trending downwards. So when I was recovering, it was never quite as recovered as last time. I think it was kind of ambitious for me to think that I could have managed, especially the trip to London, very well, because like I had the best time and I don't regret it, but I sometimes get this like imposter syndrome when it comes to my chronic fatigue, that like because I have good days that are really good and because I have the ability to sometimes here and there kind of power through, it's kind of like what if it's just in my head. But then there are other days where I wake up and I'm like, no, this is very real. This is very real and I cannot move, and also, why am I feeling quite this unwell? Well, duh. I think that is like one of the struggles of having like a dynamic chronic illness, is that like not having really consistency, obviously, between like the very good days and the terrible days. I don't know, if you struggle with anything similar, let me know in the comments, like, because I even worried like on my good days that people are gonna think that I've been faking it or something, which is really silly to say out loud, because like I will literally go into a stream really excited to do it and spend the entire time yawning for the whole 3 hours. Or like I'll be editing a video and you can just like, even though I've tried to look awake, you could probably carry groceries in the eye bags that are there. There is no hiding it on some days at all. I also ended up getting a Visible membership. So this is a polar armband. It has like consistent heart rate monitoring and it's supposed to help with pacing and budgeting my energy and such. So it will tell me if I'm kind of overexerting in the moment and encourage me to stop and rest. I mean, it definitely does help, but we were noticing that I was still kind of having a really hard time with it. And even when I was attempting to rest, it wasn't like my body wasn't actually resting still. I don't really know how to describe it. Like even lying down for a good amount of time, it would be really hard to get my heart rate to lower to a resting state. I would literally have to be like fully asleep for that to happen. But anyway, after the London trip, obviously that caused quite a significant crash, and so I was really upset about this because like I tried my best all the way into the lead up to the trip to look after myself enough to like try and sort of budget the energy for that. But it was, however, a lot of walking and extremely hot, and the heat intolerance, that's also another fun thing. I was also noticing a lot of like when I was having times that I was needing to stand, specifically standing still, that would be another way that my heart rate would kind of skyrocket. And yeah, now we're in the process of looking into if I have POTS. Apparently I've probably got POTS, it's just a case of now getting it on paper, and that's probably a result of COVID as well, but that hadn't really become apparent till this year because obviously until we got our dog, I hadn't had a need anywhere near as much to be on my feet. Some elements of like training and such, you have to do standing, you know, standing outside waiting for them to use the bathroom, standing when you need to go out and even like walk to a park if there's like nowhere to sit and it's muddy. I'm trying to think of like other situations. There was lots of situations where I was having to stand still a lot more. But then I started to actually like get the data from my armband and you can actually see the difference when I'm standing still versus like even walking like a little bit slowly. That heart rate climbs and it stays there, which obviously like doesn't help for a whole number of reasons because I can be standing in a queue and feel like I'm going for a jog. And it absolutely can make me feel pretty lightheaded, but I don't like faint or anything. I also can get quite short of breath, and so it was time to like look into other ways to try and help me not struggle quite as much on a day-to-day basis. So there's a couple of things we did. First of all, basically sometime after the trip, there was a specific clothing brand store opening that I really, really wanted to go to, and I'd been excited about it for ages, but there was just no way I was going to manage doing that in the state that I was. So Michael sat me down and he just said, look, we've talked about this before, we've been talking about this for at least a year. I think this is the time, this is when we need to get you a wheelchair. I don't need it all the time. I only need it on like really, really bad days. But it just means that I've got the option to be able to do a thing that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. But it was like a huge kind of mental hurdle to get over because like it's kind of a new like, oh no, I didn't think this was now, like I thought it was going to be past 30. It was before my 30th birthday. So I kind of like wanted to at least mentally make it past that point, which sounds really silly. If I need it on those days, then I need it. So we went out and got me a manual wheelchair and Michael pushed me around the place for that specific store opening, and it was amazing because I actually got to go and I wouldn't have been able to go otherwise. The store is like a decent drive away, but I really didn't want to miss it. So you may or may not know, the brand is Lucy and Yak. I'm actually wearing one of the t-shirts I got on that day. But I really love their dungarees and a lot of their other clothing, so this is something that I really didn't want to miss. And I quite literally would not have been able to do anything without Michael taking me there that day. It was actually like a huge game changer, and I'm really grateful that we ended up doing things that way. We did also have our 30th birthday trip already planned out, and this was going to be our first time being away for an amount of time where our dog wasn't going to be coming with us because he couldn't for the thing that we had planned. But also I was still kind of like struggling then, so we ended up upgrading my wheelchair to an electric one, so I've got the option to use that whilst I am out and about, or both of us are out and about. And we had to think about things like, am I going to be able to like lift it in and out of the car and such, and even fitting it in the car. I think I've got some footage of when I actually first got the chair and like looking at it and putting it together, so if I've got those clips I will include that. But oh my god, it was such a game changer. We wanted to go out to a shopping centre for a day, for example, and having that chair, like, it just made all the difference, because it meant that like Michael didn't have to worry about pushing me around, and I was a lot more in control of my own movement. I did embarrass myself once or twice and kind of like hit things with the chair every now and again. It was literally only like twice. But I'm very awkward in real life, and so I didn't like the feel of like wanting to be perceived when I'm out in public, and so obviously people looking at me because I'm in a wheelchair, or looking at me when I hit into something in a shop, it's kind of a lot for my anxiety. But it's something that I know that I can like work through, for example, so it's not that big a deal. We're only going to really use the chair when it's like longer days out and things like that. And what was funny is actually we went to a safari park. That was the big kind of like event for our trip away. It was Port Lim that we went to, which instead of being a drive-through one, you actually get taken in a truck, but you can also walk around the park. And so the chair was supposed to come in really handy for that, but what we didn't anticipate is quite how steep the hills were. The chair just like wasn't having it for some of those hills, to be honest. So we did part of a smaller walking route, but we got stuck in one of the places because like all we could see is that there was more of a huge hill up, and we had to like awkwardly get the chair up the hill, but I then had to like walk alongside it anyway, which was really annoying. But at least I suppose I had the motor to kind of help me up the hill. But they have a mobility shuttle around the park, so you just like call this phone number and they'll come and pick you up and take you to wherever you need to go. So they very kindly helped us get the wheelchair back to the car park to put it away, and then they took us up to where the gift shop was, because that was right at the top of the park. I do actually also have a cane as well, a walking stick, and the main reason I have that is sometimes it does help me for kind of conserving a small amount of energy when I'm walking. A, it forces me to slow down a little. B, it gives me a little bit of support, so I'm not having to think quite so much about balance. And it's just kind of like another part of my body I can use to help me get along, I suppose. But what it's really been handy for is when I am standing still. Didn't notice this until I'd been in several situations where I quite simply didn't have the option to do this, but I tend to lean on like every single surface because it helps my heart rate not skyrocket quite so much, and so I've got the stick now to lean on when I have to stand. And that is like, it's helped a lot. It hasn't like obviously stopped issues fully, it just doesn't aggravate me quite as much. So that's been really nice to have around as well, and I do actually often use this even on days where I don't feel like I need the chair. It's just I can't anticipate if I go in somewhere if it's going to be busy and I have to queue and I have nothing to lean on. It's, you know, I've got something. And the only time I don't really need it as much is if I know I'm going food shopping, because no matter how many things I'm buying, even if it's like 2 things, I'm still going to go get a trolley. Because I can lean on the trolley as I walk, I can lean on it as I stand. Another thing is also the stick does stop me wanting to lean on every other surface, because one of the things when we went to London is I kept on getting things on my shirt where I was just leaning on random walls that were dirty. Luckily the things came out in the wash, but we did try to get some relaxed time when we were away on that trip as well. It wasn't very go. We didn't actually physically go out and do all that much at all. I'm really hoping you can't hear the people that are screaming outside. I'm very sorry if you can. So yeah, we came back from that trip and just kind of like tried to keep going. But what I also haven't really talked about is the fact that obviously along with the struggle with the decline in my fatigue and stuff, it may be pretty obvious, but like it really did impact my mental health terribly. Like I can't describe how bad I was feeling on some of the days, and I was also trying to sort this out along with the doctors and such with like my medication and all that. But in a combination of like my fatigue kind of getting progressively worse, not seeming like it's gonna get better very easily, especially while still having a lot of things that we need to take care of here, especially with the dog. It was a thing that like we kind of had a chat about it and just said like it was just a day where Michael kind of looked at me and went, we can't go on like this. I was just quite simply not managing, and especially like in the time kind of like leading up to this decision, we were able to take our dog out to all the things that he can and should experience, like even walks, less and less over time where we just physically couldn't because I was extremely unwell. Michael's up and down with his back issues from needing to take like more unplanned rest, other things kind of like falling out of line in the apartment and such, and it was kind of one of those situations where like something had to give, and there was nothing else we could really do besides contact the family that we got our dog from and say, hey, you know, would you be able to take him back? Because when we first got him, they said if there's like any issues at all, anything that happens, don't like rehome him locally, don't give him to a rescue, please talk to us first. I'd also been speaking with them kind of like throughout the year anyway, so we were just like in contact as it was. But no, they were really, really understanding to our circumstances, and were really, really kind about it. So a few weeks ago we did take him back to the family that he came from. I did get updates for the first sort of like week or so because I kind of like thought I wanted them, and it did like help, especially in the first like couple of days, seeing how happy he was. He was also living with other dogs, which he absolutely loves being around other dogs, and I think it's been absolutely amazing for him. He's already been out and had like so many experiences again, going to like different places, so it does help like knowing and having seen how happy he now is. And it's not to say he was necessarily like miserable or anything here, it's just like another thing that was really affecting my mental health as well over time is like knowing how much that we wanted to do and give for him and just like we couldn't. So obviously like in a need to literally find any way to find any improvement at all in, you know, my health, our health, but also like making sure he had all the experiences that he deserves. As rubbish as the situation as it is, we knew we made the right call. But yeah, I think for like obvious reasons, this is the thing that I kind of like don't really want to talk about, so I just wanted to like make this one update video of what's kind of been happening and just as much as we can somewhat of a clean break and move on. But like I was kind of like dreading and always having the back of my mind every time I stream that someone's going to innocently ask, oh, how's the puppy? And I could say he's good, but I don't want to talk about it. It's just kind of like rubbish that the state of like where our health is has meant that we just kind of can't have things like that in our life anymore. So it's looking like probably we don't think we're ever gonna get pets again. I mean, certainly obviously not getting cats or dogs ever again. Even like other types of pets, they still take like time and energy, and we, as much as we want to have that, we physically don't have that. If you watch the main channel as well, you'll probably also notice that I have actually missed quite a lot of streams and videos this year compared to what I had in previous years. And that's literally because of the struggle with the fatigue and such that I've just been having a really hard time trying to get a grip on. And just kind of noticing over time my general base level of functioning was just getting less and less and less. Physically barely able to take care of myself for some time. Obviously, like, emotionally trying to process and deal with having to make that decision has been really hard, but since then, in the weeks after that, of like once again getting everything straight in the apartment and having a bit of like time and space to recover, even like in small doses that I really didn't have before, it has made like quite a lot of difference to my ability to take care of myself and just generally how I've been feeling on a day-to-day basis, I guess. And so like, I mean, yeah, I've got time to sit down and maybe put some effort into this vlog channel. I've got time to potentially explore some hobbies for myself, because we are also seeing my ability to work and like how productive I am is kind of like, it's getting better again. It is getting better, because for a while over the past few months it really was just like work, dog related things, sleep, and not very much of anything else. Most days, that is. Times for getting out were basically things like a food shop, for example. I don't know, I feel like it's really hard to kind of describe how difficult things got, because like you see a lot of things like people just getting a dog and it not really being for them and giving up essentially, but it was literally getting to a point where it just quite simply wasn't functioning. And also the other thing is, because of my ADHD, it does make it kind of hard to rest, because my brain is in a battle of like need to do things and want to do things, and you can't stop me doing things, and then my body being like, what are you doing? Stop it, lay down, be horizontal, be stationary, please. And like, yeah, that is still a struggle, but it's a bit different like when you have a whole other thing that you are kind of like worried about or wanting to care for a lot. It is a whole different type of feeling with energy and all that kind of stuff. I've also kind of like seen in my Visible app that my body is having a much easier time being able to rest. Like, it's even kind of nice seeing when I've been just recording videos or even streaming. Even then, like, my heart rate goes down to a good like rest level. I'm like happy, I'm chilling, all that kind of stuff. Like, it really has kind of made all the difference. And I don't want it to sound like we didn't want him, because I feel like it's coming across as like, oh my god, so much happier. Like, no, that's not the case. It's just like on a health kind of level, an ability to do all the other things that we need to do. I am definitely like functioning better now, or kind of like getting towards functioning better again. That's not to say I haven't still been having really bad days. Like, there was a day quite recently, like now that we have straightened everything out in the apartment, it meant that we've now got room to use the manual wheelchair in the house if we need to, or if I need to. So I had a day quite recently where my heart rate was being pretty whack for a lot of standing situations. Like I couldn't even go and make a slice of toast in the kitchen. And so I just used the wheelchair around the house for that day, and it made a world of difference to how I was feeling, literally forcing myself to not stand up and walk around. So that's kind of another thing, is having the space to be able to use that indoors. All that kind of stuff. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say really. I know I said a lot, I rambled for a long time. The camera battery is also getting low. But yeah, it wasn't a decision that we wanted to make, it was one that we had to make. And like, having seen that he's also getting a lot more than he was from us like in the last sort of couple of months, we've definitely made the right decision for this dog. And he's a pretty adaptable dog, so I don't even think he's kind of like bothered about the fact that he's not here, because he's around other dogs and he loves other dogs, and that's like kind of his thing. I feel like there's no kind of like good way to say any of it really. But yeah, just know that like, a few points I want to make. We wouldn't have done this if we knew it was going to end up this way. It's not fair on any pet to have to keep being uprooted like that. If I could see into the future and see that I was going to be looking at potentially the fact that I might have POTS and having days that are as bad as sometimes needing a wheelchair, I would have seen that like, yeah, I probably wouldn't have been able to give this dog everything that we could or would have wanted to, if that makes sense. So yeah, obviously like knowing what we know now, we wouldn't have done it, but I'd been stable for quite a good while, and the only things that were aggravating me were like large amounts of physical and mental activity, which was something that wasn't really all that often. Obviously we thought it would be okay. In fact, we thought it would be something that would help in a lot of ways. We've also spoken to our landlady about it as well, because she came and did an inspection last week, so she now knows the whole situation. She was also very obviously understanding about the whole thing, and she's just like, she's a really good landlord. I know there's not many of those around, but I guess like it's one of those things that I've also been really anxious about telling anyone that has happened, because like I just feel so terrible about it all. We both do. I say I a lot because, you know, mainly I can only speak for myself, right? But I know Michael's also been feeling really sad and rubbish about all of it. It just sucks, and I don't want to talk about it, hence wanting to do it in this video instead. I just need to check my notes to see if I missed anything. I think it's also with the kind of like chronic fatigue kind of part of it is like, I guess the best way to describe it is my base level probably lower than it was maybe even a year ago. But like I still get good days that are really good days that I can do like a fair amount of stuff now. Not like all day walking or anything. I still have to be mindful about a lot of it, but you know, I can get up and do something fun for some amount of time. But then when I come back from that, I have the ability to rest a lot better. It's just also on top of that, my bad days are worse than they were before, and I was going to end that sentence with, and that's okay. And maybe it is okay, but I'm still trying to learn how to deal with those days, because that is a new feeling that I've not fully worked through, but I'm trying to be like kinder to myself on days that like I need to use mobility aids, when I need to use my walking stick or I need to use my wheelchair. Just because I don't need these things full time doesn't mean I don't deserve to be able to use them, I guess. That is one of the main mental hurdles, because I have good days that I can like walk around and go out and maybe do some fun things. I guess I feel extra strained on the days where I can't do those things and I need some extra help, and I guess that's something I am personally working on, but I'll get there. I'm just like really self-conscious about being perceived, and actually I got my first comment from a random stranger the other day. I was out with a friend and I was using my walking stick, and a guy walks up next to us and he goes, "Is that stick even doing any work?" And instead of either ignoring him or I don't even know what I would have said if I had my head thinking straight, but I just went into full fawn mode and just fully started explaining myself, which he doesn't need to know. It was just kind of like, basically explaining that I more need it for standing than I do for walking, which is obviously exactly the case. Still helpful for walking, but it's the standing where I need it the most. And my friend just looking at him with dagger eyes the entire time was kind of funny. He didn't really say anything else after that. He just like kind of walked off. But people get some worse things said to them, whether it's like related to wheelchairs or any other mobility aid, like, or just like anything illness or disability related. And so like that is the kind of like attention I was worried about and kind of dreading. And I guess, yeah, people are going to be naturally curious or whatever, and I think I just need to like figure out ways to deal with that, or like to know what to say in the moment, because like I don't ever want to respond really rudely to anyone. Like, yeah, sure, I could have turned around and told him to go away or it's none of his business, but the other side of it is like maybe we do need some people where they can to say, you know, hey, there's more reasons that people might need these particular things. There's more than one reason that someone might need a wheelchair. They might be able to walk on some of the days, or they might be able to get up for a second to, I don't know, reach something or anything like that. It doesn't then mean that they don't need that particular aid, you know? Plus I do also worry about like the idea that I might get looks setting it up when I don't even have like a disabled badge myself, so I can't park in disabled bays or anything, which is fine, and I don't need the wheelchair really that often. I've only used it very few times, but if it means that I've got the ability to go out and do something, even if it's not that I otherwise couldn't, even if it's that like, okay, this is going to use a huge amount of energy and maybe we should save that, that's another huge thing that it's going to be helpful for. And it still does take some effort to like get in and out of the car and put together, but that's why we mainly use the electric wheelchair for things that are going to be like several hours or a day, especially if it's like something on your feet. Like if I know I'm going to the cinema, for example, I'm obviously not going to bring my chair or anything like that. I'm going to be sat down again for hours. If it's busy, I might bring my stick because I'm going to have to queue to get food. It's just funny because like it's really hard to take your own advice. Like if someone else was saying this to me, I'd be saying like, look, you know, if you need these things and they help you out, if they do give you even like a little bit better of a quality of life, then, you know, who cares what people think? It's so easy to say that to someone else, and then you're in that position yourself. And even though I do YouTube for a living, when I'm out like face to face with people in public, there's a lot of other people who are on social media that are like this, but I feel like I am like pretty awkward, and also like unless I'm going into a situation where like it makes sense to be perceived, I don't want to be perceived. Like if I'm just going out for a day out, I don't want people to notice me, I just want to live my life. But yeah, I have no idea if any of that was coherent. Hopefully some of it was. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for sticking by me. It's been kind of a year, but I'm hoping that like, especially now having talked about it with all of you, it might make it a little easier to move on, and now you know what's happened and just sort of like where we're at. I say it again, I know that there's probably going to be some people who are kind of like mean about it all, but again, that could just be something that's like part of my anxiety, I guess, and it's why I was so nervous to even film this or talk about it, and I didn't want to just like drop something like this in the middle of a stream. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to be caught off guard. I wanted to be able to figure it out, have notes, and then hopefully really just not have to talk about it again after that. Like, obviously I am very open and stuff with my health struggles, but when it comes to the pet related stuff, yeah, I just don't want to talk about it anymore, and I hope you can understand why. So maybe on a lighter note, there are some things that obviously I do want to do with this channel. I want to find a way to like incorporate more vlog style content that isn't just me sitting here talking at you, and I've set my camera up now in a way that I can actually do that a little better, so hopefully you'll be seeing more vlogs. I don't know how frequent they'll be. I don't know if I want to put a schedule on it necessarily, because like that is still some pressure, but I just want to do more like IRL vloggy content because I love that kind of stuff. I watch so much of that kind of stuff, so hopefully you'll want to stick around and see more of that over time. The result of our needle felting today, here's the start of our bird. we really didn't do any of it, but obviously I poked myself and I didn't want the needle pokey noises coming through on the camera too much, and then I'm also like shaking the camera with the motion, which I didn't really want to do. But yeah, I guess I better go back and get back to work, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!